today. I really want to put more focus on that. I know I've been doing a lot of package source and I want to mix it up a little more. Notqmail is an email server and it has been, for a variety of reasons, a little too long since our last release. So we're trying to figure out how much we can defer and what we can ship as soon as possible. And I have a few things about that I want to work on today. So the current release of notqmail is 1.08. And we're working on what we think was going to be called 1.09, probably still will be. And there's a lot going on here. Some of these things I feel like I'm going to be able to unilaterally decide to defer, and some of these things I'm going to want to discuss with my co-developers. But for now, there's a few that, there's one that I've been involved in that has a few different tentacles. One thing that you have seen recently on this stream about notqmail is this tab, auto build updates. We were not building at all on Ubuntu because how did it work out? Yeah, we were trying to get a newer version of the testing library we use called check or libcheck, and the Ubuntu version that's available in GitHub Actions is too old. And so I thought, there's no reason this should have to work, but I could try it if I can get a version of the check package from a newer Ubuntu, and it's a newer version. Maybe I'll get lucky and it will still execute on an older kernel with an older glibc or whatever it is. And it did. But we had to bump it to a version of Ubuntu that's newer and still supported than what's in GitHub Actions. And in the interim, it was on a version that had been supported and then dropped out of support. It was not a long-term support release, and so you have to keep up with those. So that's done. And then the Solaris stuff was a little more involved. Just to walk you through that quickly, we had a couple different problems, both of which it turned out I had caused. So one of them was we had introduced a subdirectory where we would cd into there and run make on that make file. Until that, we did that for tests for a variety of reasons. Until then, we had a single make file for the entire source tree, which was all at the top level directory. And so when I introduced, I think I'm the one who did this, I introduced it in the form of make-C, and I must have tried that on a BSD make and a GNU make and found that it worked. I didn't try it on a Solaris make, and somebody found that this was a problem. And so for a variety of reasons, I was working to fix it. Turns out it was my mistake. I didn't even realize that. So what fixed it, you don't have to use this construction at all, FYI. You can just say cd into the directory and run make there. And so that's what I did. So some of the changes are going to be that. So this is one of the things that we fixed. Another thing that was reported was we had what we thought were a lot of redundant make rules, one for each manual page that had to be pre-formatted from the source file. And we thought, they all have the same .1, .5, .8, these regular suffixes that man pages have. And we could just write a suffix rule because it's the same thing every time. You take the source file and you run nroff, and you get the target file. And so we thought, let's use suffix rules and remove some of this duplication. Cool. But again, nobody was checking on Solaris make. So turns out for some reason, the way that we had done it, we were not able to get the manual pages to build on a Solaris make with the way that we had rewritten the make file. So I took care of both of those. Now that I have a Solaris VM, and now that we have a Solaris VM as an automatic build in GitHub Actions. And then once that was working, we also needed a newer libcheck for Solaris, newer than the package system for that has available. And for that, I couldn't find a newer one. So I built it from source. And we may want to follow up, like this PR says. We may want to use the GitHub cache action so that when we have built the artifact of the libcheck, we can then reuse it from then on. It doesn't change very often. It's not our code. We just need to have it. And it looks like the GitHub cache action can help with that. But for now, I just wanted to get the builds fixed the way that they had been working before. And then we have a PR, one that I was working on with a bunch of people last year, that needs the no-lib check. And so that's why I pulled it out into this PR, to remove that concern from the other PR that has actual code changes to make. So that's this one. And I'm waiting for one more review on that, and then it can go in. The next thing that I want to look at today is about this bug. We introduced a regression in our last release, which sadly was a while ago. And there are a number of causes that contributed to how we could make this mistake and not notice it. But to my mind, the biggest one, based on my own experience as a programmer and a person who's like medium smart, just medium smart, is that if I am counting on my brain to read some code and then be sure that I know what it will do, I'll get myself in trouble. And even to some extent, if I count on myself to run some code and manually check what it will do, even that can get me into some trouble. If I have to do it more than a couple times, I will lose track of what I was thinking about. And so for me, the sort of the lowest level thing I can do to minimize my mistakes is automated tests. And especially if I write them first. If I write them first, I find the cognitive state that I'm in before I undertake something, before I have started, I am pretty detail oriented. It seems like the wrong time, but that's what my brain is doing. And so I can take advantage of that if I think through, what are all the things I'm worried I might screw up before I even take the first step? Write them down. Just make a list. And conversely, the time that cognitively that I'm the least careful is after I've been at it for a while. My brain's a little tired. It seems like I might be almost done. And I'm very quick to offer myself the olive branch that it seems like it's good now. Let's stop. That's not good, because that's not the same thing as knowing that it is good. And I know that I'm easy to fool myself about this. So for me, I like to write the tests first. I think for an open source project in general, I'm less specific about that other people need to do that, but that we should have tests to accompany changes. And that's one of the reasons that I caused those bugs in that other tab that we looked at, is that I thought, well, one thing that I can contribute is the first round of automated tests for something in this project. Nobody's as excited about that as I am. I'm definitely excited about it. And so I picked the string library that comes with qmail, and now notqmail, and wrote some tests about it. And I picked a test framework that I'd used before and that I also knew would be willing to work with our very old, very warning-laden code, which has since gotten a lot better. And so at some point after this next release, we may want to revisit using a more modern testing tool. I would be in favor of that. But for the time being, I had created those bugs that we just looked at a minute ago by creating a test subdirectory, writing some tests, and getting those merged. And so the details of that we have to fix. That's what's coming. But also it was right. I think it was right to start testing things. One way that I know it was right is that when there was a vulnerability reported by Qualys in spring 2020, 2021, 2020, can't remember. Must have been 2020. That, first of all, they coordinated with us because we're a living community derivative of qmail. There isn't anybody else much to collaborate with about this. And then it turns out the code that had the security related bugs was a close cousin of the string handling library. And so we could, and did in this case, not me, but a developer who's more than medium smart and working on notqmail, could extend the tests that were already there to handle these edge cases that had been reported. And so I felt really good to have a collaborator like that on the team, and I felt really good to have given him a place to add what he needed to add, rather than to have to create tests from scratch, but just to add some tests to what was already there. I helped in that way. I couldn't help in a lot of other ways, but I helped in that way. And I still feel like that's right here too. So if the problem is that we made a bug in a release and didn't know that we had, then I don't feel excited about manually fixing that and reading the code and convincing ourselves that it's right this time, and manually running the code and making sure that it behaves right this time, and saying that that's enough. We haven't fixed the underlying work process that allowed us to make the mistake the first time. And so uh, when I was thinking about how should we go about fixing this, my thought was, first, let's write some tests that fail, showing the problem, about how it ought to work. And when we have that, then we can do what it takes to make them pass. And so in this PR, I came down to a pretty small reproducer here. So you need a qmail inject, you need an unqualified recipient, and it'll cook up an email message for you with that. And then we have the two cases that should be the same result, but are not. The case that works the way that it should is the second one, qmail inject with a -h and no further arguments. And the case that doesn't work the way that it used to and needs to be put back is -a, followed by the short name of the recipient. And this was a short reproducer. I believe I even made it into some automated tests that run in the check framework in our test subdirectory, but that, in order to run, need a program that is currently outside the source tree of notqmail. And that program is here. So I'll try to not talk too much about it. I want to work on this branch now. But what I want to work on is cleaning up this pull request. This is another pull request that I worked on in a group. We were doing online mob programming, ensemble programming through pubmob.com. And we worked out together a pretty good way, we thought, and I still think, to take this external program and get it into the source tree so we can use it in tests. And not only for tests, there's more motivation than that. And so first we want it there to make those tests really fast and not have to run as root and not need a whole qmail installation. Qmail qfilter will help us do that. And then as it happens, this is something that a lot of qmail administrators would want to install anyway and probably have. I don't know the percentages, but I would guess at least half of people who run qmail and its derivatives have this program. It's the kind of thing that, like I said here, its design feels like something qmail should have always included. And so that's a pretty decent argument for, if half the people who use qmail use this, then include it with qmail. That's one less thing for them to do. And then finally, we started down a path for 1.09 where we have this patch that we already merged that lets SMTP message rejections include a custom message. Instead of just saying rejected, it can say something about the policy reason why not, or why it's not accepted. And in conjunction with that, if we have qmail qfilter in the tree, then they could install notqmail totally unpatched. And they would still be able to write programs that they could compose into the SMTP server chain that would reject the way they wanted messages to be rejected. No patches, which if you're not in the qmail world, of course, no patches. You should be able to do it with no patches. If you're coming from the qmail world, that's eye-opening. That's not the way the culture of qmail has been. And that's something we're trying to change with notqmail. So there are lots of reasons to want it, and there are even more if we look forward toward future features that we're going to want that can build on qmail qfilter. But for right now, we want it for our tests. And so that's what I want to clean up today. I want to look at the feedback on this branch, which is considerable, and see what I can do about it. Before I go too far with that, I want to point out what we're going to do with this, the order of operations. I have been saying so far, I really want this program in the tree so that we can have those automated tests that show the bug, so that we can be sure that the fix is a fix and not a new bug. And then we should commit the proposed fix to this. But it has been a very long time since our last release, and that doesn't make me want to compromise the kind of confidence that I want to have. But there are reasons that I find convincing where if we have this in working order on a branch, and we have the automated test that I would want to see passing, that we wouldn't have to merge that first before we could merge the fix, as long as we can see it for ourselves for now. And the reason we might want to defer this, the biggest reason we might want to defer this, the smallest reason to defer this, which is still non-zero, is that it's taken us a long time to get to a release, and this is another piece of work. But the bigger reason to maybe defer this, that I'm more amenable to, is there's also a license concern, which we believe we have handled responsibly, but would be better if we could discuss it more thoroughly first. So, the goal of cleaning up this PR today is not to get it accepted pronto. The goal of cleaning it up is to make sure that we can run those tests that we have on a branch using this, and have this be as ready as it can be, so that the only issue really left to discuss is the license issue. And once that's true, then I can give my opinion on this pull request, which proposes to fix the regression that we talked about. So, and this also says that I verified that, basically that I tested this patch, because I'm the one that found the regression. I think I did. It's been a while though, and I probably would want to test it again. So I'm not sure we'll do that today, but this is what we're going to focus on today. So, what is there to look at? In our first commit, we imported cumulative filter, the whole source tree, as it was at the time of the last release. Then we delete the files that we don't think we need, which were most of them, because this thing has its own change log, its own build system, its own what have you. It turns out that we, in the end, don't need a lot different to have this in our tree. So we're going to git ignore the generated man pages and the object file in the program. We're going to note the change. I also rewrote the manual page to make it as clear as I could, because I remember I struggled for years trying to understand this program 15 years ago. And once I got it, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody should be using this, and they are. But it didn't tell its own story very well, and I was hoping the manual page that I rewrote now will help. This also forces the issue because of the license that when we release the next version of notqmail, we say what we usually say about copyright, but we have to give an exception because we're adding something that's under a different license. Qmail filter is under the GNU public license 2 or newer. So we have to mention that, and that's why we got the copyright file lined up. One of the manual pages to generate is this one. To make the program using Qmail style build rules, here you go. You'll notice one thing we did is that we tried to isolate the location of the source code that is under GPL. And so the manual page, which I nearly rewrote from scratch, but not quite, so I'm going to keep it under GPL version 2, is in that subdirectory. And likewise, the object file, the C file from Qmail filter that we imported is also in the subdirectory. They're the only two things that are. And that helps us see visually at a glance. You extract the tarball, you look what's around. There's two subdirectories. One of them is tests, okay, and one of them is GPL version 2. And if that raises your eyebrows, then you might be in a situation where you have to legally evaluate, is this something that I'm allowed to run? Because some corporate entities will prefer non-GPL code for various reasons. And that evaluation can be quick because the contents of that directory are small. And, by implication, which is correct, nothing else in the source tree has that license. It's just those two. And then the thing you want to check for license enforcement typically is this building a library that other things are going to link with, or is this building a standalone executable? And it's the latter. You can see that the .c builds a .o, and the .o goes into a program, and that's the end of the story. And that's why I believe this PR will be acceptable to notqmail, because it does not muddy the license issue any more than, the fact that it is GPL and it is adding it. But it's not linking it. It's just adding it. So I think this will be acceptable, but that's how we delineated it. And then these are the things we'll clean up after we do a make clean. Those are generated files. We add a copy of the GNU public license as it was found in the qmail-qfilter tarball. And then this is that rewritten manual page as best as I could do it. And this is the C source file after a few minimal changes that we made to it. And again, the principle here, there's lots of things about that file that are not in the local style. For instance, it doesn't use, it uses a lot of the standard C library functions and types, and as opposed to, the local homegrown DJB functions. But that's fine. We can get confidence that this program behaves as people expect if we don't change it, given that it's code that's been running in production for people for 15 plus years. So if all we do is import it and get it to build, then it is the same program. The minute we start to change the style, even just renaming some things might be safe, but we don't have to do that yet. We can do that in a future release. For now, we can import it under the exact state it was in, and then when we have tests around it, we could be freer with it. So that's what I was proposing in this PR, along with my cohort. And yeah, finally, what gets installed? We install this program into bin. We install these manual pages into man, and that's it. Nothing different. So that's the bulk of the PR. There's a lot of feedback to look at, and that's where I want to pick up. So let's go there. And while we're at it, yeah, that looks pretty good. I want to say filter to do and take some notes from this PR, because there's lots of things that we're going to want to do. So let's read. Should there be a change to copyright? I would say that we did. Let's make this a markdown list also. Node GPL d2 bits in copyright. Oops. I would say that we did that. So this is a really, really cool thing. We need to get this more integrated into our GitHub organization. But Josua made this awesome automated thing. We have a strong project goal, at least for the first part of the project's lifetime, that because so many people have so many patches for their qmail installation, wherever possible, at least for the really important popular patches that most people will use, we want to make sure they don't break, that they will continue to patch cleanly or with really minimal thinking, but ideally cleanly, automatically, until such time as we have added the functionality that that patch is providing. So for instance, a really common patch that people install is the TLS patch that enables encryption for qmail to send messages out to other systems. Qmail Remote is the program that is the client, and to receive messages over encrypted transport from other mail servers on port 25 SMTP, typically, and that's qmail SMTPD. And so that wasn't in the original qmail. It's a really big patch. There's one patch, and that's the patch. And if you're using TLS, that's probably how. And so for the time being, realistically, if we want people to try to do their little updates or upgrades from older QMails to ours, we got to make sure it stays little. And if we break that big patch, it's not a little upgrade anymore. So Josua came up with this sort of continuous integration for patch compatibility, which we hadn't had before. We really need. A note about that, sidebar. We did break the TLS patch, and we didn't notice right away. So this is something we have to resolve before 1.09, one way or another. Either restore compatibility, ask the patch author to provide, to publish a version of it that's based on our code, do that ourselves, or explicitly change the goal of the project. I guess those are the four big options. I'm really hoping we can do the first one, take the patch that already exists and let it work with our code. That would be ideal. For now, this can change later, but for now it has to be true. So I'm not sure if I know when I will have fixed this, but this is a thing we need to do. SMTP TLS, big to do. I'm looking at this and this. Was it big to do or was it X? Not sure. Looks like it mentions both. Other patch branches. Okay, two. What's next? There's some comments about what broke. Right. There are comments on which functions we're calling here. So like the code says a replacement for setn for the systems that don't have one. And Josua is rightly asking, does that happen? And Aika is saying, sure looks like it's standard by now. And we can just count on that. I'm very fine making that change, but later. I don't think we have to change the style of this code to get it included. I think maybe, in fact, we have to not change the style of this code to get it included in a known state before we change it. So I'll comment on this, but my thoughts are basically, let's do this later. And I probably have commented that somewhere here already. Likewise, looks like this takes a void parameter list. Well, this is a good idea to move this to avoid a conflict with a patch. I'm very open to that. What was I thumbing up earlier? Oh, just awesome that he found a conflict. Okay, so move error.c email filter line up with the other email binaries. To maybe fix the TLS patch conflict. There's just a lot on this page, and so I want to collect my thoughts. Likewise here, so move makefile, email, qfilter, word up behind qbif. Same reason. Set n. Right. We might want to put this into .h because these are extended return codes for qmailq. Qmailq filter follows the qmailq interface for putting a message into the queue. It also extends it, which is what makes it such a useful tool, to not put messages into the queue for temporary reasons, permanent reasons, what have you. And so he's suggesting You know what I should also do? Defer L.H, and that is a header that describes the qmail message injection struct protocol, you could say. Yeah, this is a good thought. Okay, so there it is. And there's a null check missing around line 62. Check the malloc result for nullness. Yep. Around line 247. Whoops. Line. Don't bother to close FD. It's going on. Dupe 2, we'll close it anyway. Get rid of Compatibility. Just call I'm not reading carefully if I actually agree with these right now, because it doesn't matter. There are things that, for the same reason, I don't want to do yet. Later, when I think I might want to do them, then I'll know more about it. Around line 253, the var parameter to move unless empty should be an off t. Check struct stat to be sure. Very possible. Around line 264, fix indentation. I think I can do that now. I'm comfortable with that. Parse envelope. It looks okay in this example, but I'm sure he's right that it's indented wrong. Also around line 281, got a malloc. Around line 322. Things like we should be freeing freeing C, in which case the loop needs to be restructured to permit that. Here we go with the comment from me. What do you know? I agree it needs more attention to fit smoothly into our code base. And this is a case where we don't have to worry about breaking people's patches because this is just new code. I do worry about breaking it since we don't have tests for this new code, so we don't have tests for it yet. And I don't want to have to clean up this code in order to have the tests to fix the bug, in order to fix the bug. So we should do those things. I'm just saying we should do them later. So I'm saying in this PR, qmail filter should consist of the exact same code administrators have been relying on, so that we already know it works as expected with no regressions and can defer writing tests for it. Once the PR is merged, I'll provide a branch with these tests. I think I have a branch locally, maybe even pushed up, just not a pull request. Once we have those tests, we can merge the fix, which is here, and then we're a step closer to 1.09. After the release, we should write tests for this, and then we should clean it up however we want. Until then, we shouldn't. This is a really good idea. Squash the commits. Let's do that earlier. Squash second commit into first. In other words, leave out upstream files we'll never need. Attribute first commit to Gunter. It's his code. Attribute cleanups after that. The pub mob crew. Yeah, those are right. For sure we have to do that. Looks like I might have done some of this stuff already. So let's see. Right, this is where we decided we would move things into GPL v2, and I guess we should probably, yeah, also squash the move into the GPL v2 into this commit. So that way the first commit of this code, it lands in that directory. There was no other state with the copy. Okay, yeah, see, those are just the moves. Okay. And yeah, that should never have happened. And I was trying to follow the advice. It looks like something is still broken. What happened here? Solaris. Okay, so maybe it really did help. The Solaris builds have been really janky lately. So maybe that has been done. Yeah, so okay. So I'll say that I did do this. And I did do this up next to qubit. Okay. So we have some commit squashes to do. Trailing white space might have been my own doing. Okay. Let's do some rebasing, shall we? First of all, this branch is called Schwansky Mail Q Filter OSF. Over my remotes here. This is going to be upstream, so I think I've done a fetch recently, but just in case. And then I want to change onto that branch. Ooh, okay. Where do I have it? Sure. Where is this branch coming from? Okay. So then I would like to say it this way. Git checkout track upstream. Email to go through that. Yeah, okay. This looks like the one. And by the way, if you're not familiar with the tool called TIG, it's really cool. Kind of like Mutt for Git commits. That's what this looks like to me. So you can say, show me this commit, or this one, or this one, or this one. And that's pretty handy. What I want to do now is some fancy schmancy rebasing. And I don't think I need this on my screen anymore because I took some good notes. So let's just get ourselves a nice big Tmux situation. Do some good rebasing there. Oops. My to-dos for now at the end. Maybe. Okay, so before we do this, which was the delete unwanted files? All of those. That doesn't look very deletey to me. I worry that it's because I'm in rebase. Let's get out of here. That looks pretty deletey. Hmm. Is that a different commit than I think it is? Oh, ha, wrong command. I don't want to get diff stat that. I want to get show stat that. That is all it was. Okay. Back to the mines. Fine. So then step one, we want to squash this commit into the previous one. Let's fix up. And I guess reword this one. And these come with me over here. Approximately. Right, so I want to reattribute this, but we'll get to that in a moment. We'll keep it for now. That did not quite work. Okay, let's be less ambitious. Try it again, just like that. Okay. And now, if we look at this initial import, it's going to have just a couple things in it. Still to the top level, right? And now it would be cool to redo that to go into the GPL directory. So this is where we moved it and also updated our copyright statement. I guess that should be part of the same commit. That sounds fine. So then let's rebase again. And I wanted to see what the remove to do left in previous ones. Yeah, that ought to work. Okay. So then I should be able to take these two and fix up and fix up. Not quite. What's going on? Merge conflict in makefile. We had a rename, but it was deleted in head. That's fine, I think. So what's the problem? Deleted by us. Does that help? Says it's a new file and it's a rename. Got a conflict here. Yeah, we'll just take this. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. Almost. Something funny going on here. I'll have to clean that up in a minute. Think I'm working too hard. Rebasing is tough for my limited brain. Makefile has no. What's it? Just keep that. Oh. What? Okay. Yeah. It's coming from the subdirectory. So that's fine with me. And that one wins. Oy vey, I must have done something very silly. Okay, so we want to get the best of both here. I'm probably making this harder for myself somehow, but I don't see how. So qmail qfilter.1 depends on this file, and we pipe it through sed and write it to there. Woof. Let's see what the hell commits we have now. Okay, first one still misattributed to us rather than Bruce Gunter, but almost good. We still have this problem that includes qmail qfilter.1. I think that's what it's about. Okay, I'm going to blow away my changes here because I don't like how this went. This is a good follow-up commit by us. Yeah, we got to work more carefully here. So get checkout here, get branch D, this. I broke that. I don't feel good about it. Let's try this again. Get checkout. What was it called? Track. Upstream that. Okay, so we're back to the history as we had it. I'm gonna try harder not to break it this time. Anyway. So the files that we imported that we're gonna keep are qfilter.c and qfilter.1. In a later commit, we change it to qmail qfilter.9 because we have to process it during the build for paths. So that should wait. I bet that's my challenge. This turns it into a .9. So one thing at a time. Now we only imported the files that we need with our first commit. That's tiny. Let's not do that. We only imported the files that we need with our first commit, which are qmailqfilter.1 and qmailqfilter.c. So far, so good. Also, what are we going to build and what are we going to not commit to get? Those are very similar. In this case, the same. Okay, and that is his original manual page. Right, because you can see here somewhere I rewrote the manual page considerably. Okay, what can we do next out of our rebasing list? I want to get the commits kind of right, and then I want to fix the attribution. That's what I'm thinking right now. So this is a good follow-up commit. What does this one look like? I thought I pasted that, but I didn't. This is the one where we generated the pre-formatted manual page. Okay, and then the commit after that, I assume, is where we install it. Both. And then this one, we generate the program from the source code. I can see that one getting smushed into something else. Pre-process qmail home. This is what's going to turn it into a .9. Right. So .1 is now a generated file. It's generated from the .9. And then we rename 1 to .9 and use it as a source file. So then I rewrite it. And then there's a changes entry. What exactly is in this commit? This moves the .c and the .9. And it adds it moves the C and the .9, and it adds a couple of things. Okay, trying to think how to shape this. So this should be an easy one, and it is. Basically the same as before. Commit probably has a new ID. Easier to get it right the first time, they say. So let's see. Remove unnecessary dependency is good. Generate the manual page and install it. I'm gonna say that can be one commit. Okay, we look at that. It uses what's already there. It, let's get this right the first time. just a reword. So I would think I can take these two and put them there, but not trivially. Trying to play it on easy mode here. Whoops, that's not the one I want. That's to install the program and to install the manual page. Right, and then to pre-process it, we rename it to qmailqfilter.9. That still wasn't easy. What's going on? Conflict in makefile. Zero comes from .1 and .1 comes from .9. I'm not clear about this. Getting myself in trouble again. Okay, that's a definite maybe. Let's look at our commits and see how screwed up they are. Import qmailqfilter. Add those files. Remove unnecessary dependency. Cool. Install the manual page means we rename it to .9. We generate the .1 and the .0. And it's got that extra .o in there. So I need to change what's in that commit. Install the manual page should not include this. I don't know why it does. I'm not very smart. Lord, I don't see why it has to be a separate commit at all. Let's do both. This seems promising. Import, install them. Rewrite manual page, install them, including a pre-process step, fine. Right, now we can try to move up the unbreak some popular patches. Yeah, I'm starting to win here. Import, remove, install, rewrite the page, add a changes entry, move it into GPLv2. We want to have done that sooner, though. And now I think we can squash this one onto this one because it already renamed it. So we're going to try. Yeah. Is it there on master already? Yeah. think that's what that means. Let's say I drop this commit. And I diff to upstream master. See, these are red ones. Those are okay. So we did add that somewhere. Let's look at our commits more carefully. So look for a space before the end of a line in a make file. Where did we add that? We added it in I think this commit. Yeah. Okay. So there, I got rid of it, and now we can do a rebase. There. And then the white space never happened. And it was always in GPL v2. Okay. Attribution remains to fix. Import. Just put a dot on that commit message. Starting to shape up here. You're at the manual page. Is that really all that happens in that commit? Yes. And add a changes entry at the end. Go with the install. That's a reasonable number of commits at this point. Import the code as it was, make it buildable. Yeah, let's run TIG over those. Whoops. I need to rewrite that. Let's see, BG loops. Okay, and now if we say TIG, we have an import that needs reattributing of just the files we care about, but did they go into GPL v2? No, it only happened here. I wanted it to happen to begin with. I don't want any commits where it's not isolated there. And I don't want any commits where it wouldn't build, which is why I have to import, remove the dependency, and then make it build. But I do want the move to GPLv2 to happen here. I want to make it so it was always imported there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it's got to be a trick. What's the trick? Could squash this one into this one, but then that would be a commit that wouldn't build because it would still have this include that isn't going to get found. What I really want is to like change this commit. Is that what edit amend means? I guess. Okay. So let's get this all on my screen. This is where I want to do that move. So we're in this commit. I want to do some of these things. Where is GPLv2? In here. Nowhere yet. If I look for Q and QPC, get right above there. I don't need the make rules. I just need the files to go there, right? If this import just adds the files. I just want them added down. So I want to make their GPL v2. I want to get move qmail qfilter both into there. And I think that's all I want to change about this commit. Yeah, feels good so far. As long as we're at it. Most recent release from Tarball. Let's specify this a little harder. Fetched from there. And I've got a checksum around here somewhere. Or I can get one. So it fetched and checksummed okay. I'm gonna say, wow, that's a long shot photo. Do we have any precedent for a checksum in a commit message? Hash. No. So then I'll say that it is Blake 2S, that. And the size was that. So I'm relying on package source there to help me, which makes sure that the thing being fetched is the thing, the package or packaged. What was it again? Yeah, right. And we want to change the attribution in a moment. But hey, let's yeah, let's continue and see if this can work. Okay, and then I do a rebase continue, and I think I know what I'm gonna have to deal with. It's saying that there was a rename and a rename. Come on, brain. The first commit was a .1 and a .c. The next commit is going to change it to a .9. Okay. So I want to say git add this and git remove that. And for sure git remove that. Yeah. And then what happened is that it was renamed from 1 to 9. I think this gets me out of the woods. Let's see. So the import brings it into GPL-v2 to begin with. Remove something that would prevent it from building. Install, including a rename so we can pre-process the file. Rewrite the file. And that's it. Okay, I think we handled everything except for the attribution. We did this squash. So let's fix the attributions. So the people I want to have as contributors here for the other commits, whichever ones we wind up keeping. And for qmail qfilter, let's see if we can attribute it correctly. Looks like that. So for the first commit where it's upstream code, we want to attribute it this way. And for the remaining commits where it's our team changing things, we want to attribute it this way. Now then, I even think these two can be merged because that's all stuff we did together. And then I think this one I want to attribute to myself because I spent a bunch of hours on it myself. Um, so I want to squash. Yeah, okay. So I think I can say F C. I've never used this before. This is the commit message I want to keep. No jive. Okay, cool. So then we need to reattribute this one and this one. What is the trick in Git? Git commit on behalf of author. Let's go internet. Let's go. That was fun to develop. Git commit on behalf of author. Better. Okay. Coding on, yeah, all right. Dash dash author. Is that it? I'll take the yeah, commit dash the way this works. Ooh, yes. Mm-hmm. And now we have import by Bruce. All the changes we made as a group, like so. Rewrite the manual page by me. I like it. This is going to be where we stop. So I'm going to say git push F upstream because we have rewritten this branch with a sensible history. And let's see what that looks like. We'll come back here. See, we're down to 3 commits already. One by Bruce, one by all of us, and one by me. And let's see how this goes. So this makes this branch a lot more reviewable, I would say, especially if the checks mostly pass. We were saying we might want to rebase it onto the branch that has Solaris building. I'm not going to worry about that right now. This feels like a good cleanup. I'm going to keep it. Let's just look at those commits one more time in the beauty of the GitHub interface. Almost done with that. Then, and attributed it to its original author. And then the changes that we made are almost entirely attributed to us. I have one more that we just noticed. That's happening here. And then here's that manual page rewrite that I did. Feel quite good about it. And so with that, we'll stop the stream for today. Thanks for joining. We spent a lot of time looking at the pull request sequence that we're in, and why we're working on this right now to try to get our next notqmail release out sooner rather than later. And did a lot of Git history rewriting to get this branch into a sensible condition, which it almost is. I'll finish it up after the stream. So yeah, thanks for joining me, and we'll do more notqmail stuff real soon. Have a good one.